Yo, how is this even possible? Tesla actually smart summon? Does what seems possible in a closed course, but actually gives everybody who owns a Tesla the ability to just let their car drive a Costco parking lot? And I love pushing technology forward. I just, somehow, this just seems illegal, but maybe it is good that you can do this. I don't know. I got it, but I'm not gonna use it like this. A video is going viral of a self-driving Waymo with a passenger inside getting vandalized in the middle of the day with the passenger just sitting there watching. So 911 first responder drones are a thing. There's a new video that shows how they work, and we'll have to think about what that means for our society. There's a new model that kind of borrows from that agentic workflow to actually figure out material science problems. You know, breaking the process of making a prediction about a structure into several subtasks, which opens the door for these memory crystals, crystalline structures that can store up to 360 terabytes of data and like almost never degrade, billions of years of resistance. I envision a future where the food that we buy in stores is very nutritious thanks to genome editing. And I thought this article in SciTech Daily, where scientists have developed a super golden lettuce, which is now richer in vitamin A than ever before, would be a good place to start. And we're gonna talk about Amazon's super advanced chatbot that helps you shop named Rufus. It's powered by ads, and I hope nobody uses it. I am very much against it. Break down the truly stunning economics of OnlyFans. Like, way more money is flowing through that system than I would have ever thought. All right, let's start with this smart summon video that racked up over 100 million views on X. Now, when I first got my Tesla a couple of years ago, I did at one point go to a parking lot where there weren't very many cars, and just to see how smart summon worked. And it had a little bit of that, like I'm controlling a car from a remote control, a little bit of a like, you kind of know where I am and you don't bump into things automatically. But after I tested it that one time, I've never found it really useful. Like maybe if I'm in a really tight parking spot or something, in theory it could be used, but it's never come up. Then all of a sudden updates start coming out to my friends. I actually don't have one yet, but my friend got one, and it said that, quote, actually smart summon is now available. So I looked into what that was. Okay, let's just watch this together. So they got a cameraman in the back seat or a GoPro or whatever it is. There's somebody at the front of Costco who has their car parked deep in the parking lot, and they want the car to come up to them so they can put their groceries in there. So they're using actually smart summon. That car with no driver pulls out of the parking lot, figures out where the road is, starts moving towards them. You can see in the vector graph, it's seeing the people. It sees this car parked on the right, so it goes around them. Gets pretty close to people, if you ask me, for a car that has nobody in it and is not authorized for level 4 autonomous driving. And then here we go, man. It's just out in the world right now. A software update to people who own Teslas. And it is, I mean, honestly, real people bump into people all the time in parking lots. So I'm not necessarily saying that it's more dangerous than people, right? I do generally kind of think these systems are safer kind of on average, but also, where's this liability when you hit someone? I think that, as what I understand, I read a comment, so that's, I don't know how accurate it is, but they said liabilities on the person who owns the car. So if you're playing around with this, be super careful, because if you hit someone, you might be the person liable for hitting them. But yeah, dude, there it is. It moved all the way up. And yeah, with Robotaxi event coming up soon, I guess it'll be just like taking this on steroids and putting it out on roads, and maybe autonomous deliveries. I can't believe how fast it's all coming. I mean, it happened so slow, and now it's happening so fast. And here's another example of a guy who's using actually smart summon. Car pulls out autonomously of the parking spot. Then it can't actually turn left to get to him. It has to go in a roundabout. It has to turn right and go all the way around. But it does, which, you know, I mean, it understands how to drive. Like I'm in self-driving mode all the time, and you know, for the most part, I trust it. I use it pretty much every day, but there's something different about just not having my hand on the wheel and that thing totally being autonomous. He's watching it through that little viewfinder there, and it's going all the way around the roundabout to get to him. I mean, it feels like it's going a little awkwardly slow, but, you know, there's only so much I can expect from a feature that's just a few days old. So yeah, don't be surprised if you see some self-driving in parking lot, self-summoning Teslas now. And look, if you're more of the full level 4 autonomous Waymo, I just want to get in like an Uber and let it drive the real streets without me touching the wheel. You got a new thing to, well, worry about? I mean, this guy doesn't seem too worried. It's not his car that's getting vandalized, but also this is worrying, you know, like just because there's nobody there to defend the car, are these things going to get spray painted up whenever they go through certain neighborhoods? And like, what are these guys getting out of tagging this thing? I don't know. So yeah, Waymo car vandalized with passenger inside in San Francisco. It's interesting in the comments too to see kind of the different ways people interpret this. I mean, I do understand that Google's a big company and there's a lot of inequality, but I mean, I just don't want to be in a car vandalized. I don't want anybody I know to just be sitting there when this stuff happens, and I just don't like cities to make people feel this way. So I feel like this needs to be like remedied with maybe harsher penalties or something. I don't have the answer to that, but I definitely get uncomfortable when I see this kind of stuff. But I also can see these other points of view, like all the commenters saying to respect the cars are such bootlickers. I've almost been run over by these things many times. The company doesn't care about you, and the cars are super disruptive, and they clog the streets for no reason. But come on, man, we got to like get the technology out there somehow, I guess. Yeah, born and raised in San Francisco, these freaking things blocked first responders. They've caused accidents. They've clogged up streets, especially down in the Mission. Yeah, I'm sorry that some of these people have to deal with these problems, which they weren't there before self-driving cars. But realistically, if you take a long view of self-driving cars, like it's going to save lives. Like probably one of the most dangerous parts of your day every single day is getting in a car. Like it doesn't feel like it. You're probably more scared of snakes and guns and stuff like that, but it's probably car accidents that would rank right up there with heart disease for the kind of things that kills the average American. Self-driving cars, they should have cameras in every direction. They should have LiDAR. They should have advanced AI. And especially if they're also being monitored by a human, to me, it just seems like extra eyeballs, extra ability to protect. I mean, these cars can start to break in theory much faster than a human can, as long as their mechanisms are right. And yeah, sometimes they won't be, but certainly drunk people, humans, have all sorts of attention problems. And, you know, I'm generally in favor of pushing this technology forward. So I think I feel bad for this guy. But by the way, I wouldn't mind at all if you like if this company's, if Waymo was making billions of dollars, right? I think right now it's in the loss stage, but it's Google, right? So if these companies, Uber and whatnot, they're making tons of money, Tesla on the robotaxi system, like, yeah, go ahead and charge them, tax them, and then use that money to help make the streets safer or rebuild cities in other ways. Like there's different ways to handle this. And an interesting way to follow that up would be the new 911 first responder drones. So there's this platform. It's called LiveOps Teleoperations Platform. It's coming from this company called BRINC Drones. And yeah, they have a really kind of just interesting, I mean, it's kind of like a trailer or a sales video, but it does give an interesting perspective for how maybe policing can be done. And of course, this could be stepping over the lines of monitoring citizens, but on the other hand, when you need someone from 911 to be at the scene immediately, to see what's happening, God, I don't know. You know, drones can just be there a lot faster than police cars that put their sirens on and try their best, but they just get in traffic jams and it's not going to be nearly as efficient. So the idea is here, this person feels like they're going to get robbed, so they make a 911 call, and even though they do send a human in a car at the same time, they send a drone to the exact location to start monitoring it. And that also gives the drone operator some information about what they could relay to the person who's pulling up the human, if it's actually going to be a very dangerous situation, maybe what angle to come up on, and how many perpetrators there are or whatever. And I guess I also found this kind of interesting when it came up on my Instagram because I was recently in a traffic jam and I did see a drone and the police were actually flying it to look at a car accident involved a police car. I saw it when I drove by, and I remember waiting because they had completely blocked off the road for about 15 minutes. And I was just watching that drone kind of survey the area before I could even see what it was. And I was like, we've always had people at these scenes taking photographs, and drones seem like a way that would make sense for police. But of course, now the conversation is like, who gets to see this data? Who gets to make these decisions? How is the public kind of ensuring that third parties and whatnot are around to make sure they use the technology responsibly? Obviously, that's a much bigger, harder question. Yeah, we're getting closer and closer to living in the Minority Report movie. I think about pre-crime, actually. I did an interview with like an XR expert this morning, and I was asking about pre-crime, and it's like, yeah, when you're in VR, you're seeing a lot of interesting information that tells you what essentially a super lie detector would. Yeah, maybe they'll be able to kind of know when people are acting certain ways in certain situations and have high degree of certainty that they're doing something illegal. Could make the world safer, could kill our privacy. Like, we're gonna have to decide that as a society. All right, let's break down what's going on with Strawberry, aka GPT-01. So the thinking is that it's not so much that it's a new model, it's that the model is thinking iteratively in an agentic way, right? Agent-based way, meaning almost like a team sitting around. One person's like, I'm going to go do some research, I'm going to do some creative work, and then let's see what makes the most sense. Let's double check our answers and then give the output. That's why the responses take so much longer. But of course, OpenAI is not open, and we don't know exactly what they're doing. And Vishal Rajput has put together some kind of interesting insights into what might be going on. Now, in a strange way, really what's happening is you don't have to be a good system prompt output, right? Like, we've been seeing all these like courses on YouTube, and everybody's talking about like my secret hacks or like system prompts that give me the best answer, or, you know, pretend you're this and then like let's role play. It is kind of learning out of all of those sort of prompts what gives the best results and then doing that behind the scenes. So you can ask a basic question and then that is converted into a much smarter response that's done in the agentic way. And a couple things to know is COT means chain of thought reasoning, and then that's also another way of really just saying self-reflection. So behind the scenes, you're probably getting a better response because you're getting better prompting at the first couple steps. You're getting chain of thought reasoning after that. You're getting a more thoughtful time to reflect by going back into your history or whatever memory there is already for it to learn from. Potentially also picking things up from maybe something like a database, you know, like a RAG model, but they didn't specifically say that, so maybe not. But also something like a Google search could just bring some information that's more current into the conversation. But we can't really see all those tokens, so we don't know what it's doing. And then because you'll have so much different information kind of in there, there's some self-consistency steps that are probably taking place. In this step, you might be seeing things like sub-responses, maybe a majority vote, choosing better strategies, thinking through what's the best way to solve this problem, and then maybe even a tree of thoughts, right? So that comes from this kind of interesting paper that might be incorporated, where the O1 model might actually have multiple paths that can get to an answer, and then it's evaluating those answers instead of just thinking about it all in one linear way. Is it smart? Yes. Is it AGI? Well, according to Sam Altman, no. But I kind of wonder if he would say it like this. No. Or if it's more like, no. All right, so third video in a row where I've done this like AI digest thing that we've seen a big like diffusion video game kind of breakthrough. We had the Minecraft thing, we had the Doom thing, and now we have the GameGen-O to create open world video game simulations. I definitely think that next year, by the time like January through May hit, we're gonna start seeing video games starting to transform in a big way. Like the same way we saw image generation a couple years ago. So this is coming out of researchers from the University of Hong Kong in China, along with Tencent, and they have developed GameGen-O. But look, just like Doom, where you have a diffusion model that is generating everything on every frame, but there's some consistency mechanisms there so you can have menus and characters that look the same. They're just doing that, but with seems like better game engines, better graphics, more realistic environments, and we're definitely about to see this become a game. Like it's hard for me to believe, but I really don't even know if we're going to need another next generation game console, or if you do, it should just be something like a big, you know, TPU, a big tensor processing unit or something, and it just does inference on something that generates the game all the time, and then you just download the different weights for the model when the time comes to just run it locally, or maybe it's all just done in the cloud, but it's unique to everyone. So to power GameGen-O, Tencent built O-Game data, sourcing over 32,000 videos from more than 150 next generation games across various genres and styles. They assembled over 4,000 hours of high-quality video clips, each annotated for training and validation. And remember, in the Doom game, they were able to like map it to the way the controller was pressed. So assuming they're doing something similar here, this is another glimpse into the future of video games. Then maybe VR environments. I mean, imagine, you know, like Meta's Orion, or, well, that one's actually, because that's not pass-through, that's actually the real world holograms. I don't think you'd actually probably use diffusion models for holograms as much, but maybe it seems to me like it's more of a VR experience, something like the Apple Vision Pro where you're not using pass-through and you're just generating worlds. The next article, we're going to talk about how everybody has an opinion on Elon Musk, including his investors. So Will Lockett wrote this in Medium. It is called, "What Do Musk's X/Twitter investors think of his leadership?" And it's kind of tricky because it's a private company, so we don't know. But it does just seem like from the outside that there's far less advertisers than there used to be. Before it was sort of a general product. Now it's kind of become more kind of tuned for like one political party. There's also just not the same kind of robust infrastructure for kind of clean content, and advertisers tend to like that more. You know, I guess I understand the freedom of speech argument and all of that stuff too. But whatever, that's the leadership style. That's what they chose. And advertisers just don't seem like they're as likely to give as much money. But there's a lot more people paying, what is it, $10 a month for the verification? And I've always thought that social networks probably are better off not taking advertising money and taking money directly from the users. Like if everybody paid to use Twitter and there were no advertisers, the incentives would be aligned much better. That said, I don't know if it's better for business or not. But the venture capital company Fidelity, you probably heard of them. They have lots of customers, very big. I guess it's a bank or a capital company or whatever you call those conglomerates. They actually gave $316 million to join when Musk took the company private. Remember, that could have been all his personal money, but it wasn't. He did raise money to buy Twitter. And they have some recent documents that say that they value their stake in the company now at only $88 million, which is 72% less than what they bought it for. If we took that and said that that's the actual price of all the shares, that would mean the company is now worth about $12 billion, which is down $31 billion. Now, another news outlet called Axios, which is not super Musk friendly, so maybe they're exaggerating this, but they say that they've probably lost about $24 billion. Actually, now that I think about it, it is kind of weird, don't you think, that Elon Musk didn't put his own capital into it? I mean, he's got, what, $150 billion or $250 billion personally? Like, he really could have footed the bill for all $50 billion. Maybe it's just smart business using other people's money. But then again, maybe it's because you use other people's money, then you don't care as much, or you can take bigger risks, or you can lose value and it doesn't hurt you personally as much. If the real value is that I just want to have the biggest account on the platform, I want to make sure that the algorithms tweak so that my voice goes 10,000 times further than anyone else, and I use it like a giant advertising platform, and then I'll let the investors lose their money, that would be like one attitude where the incentives would align in a way that aren't for him. But then again, maybe, you know, that's just speculation. Maybe a different attitude towards it, but, you know, sometimes the incentives kind of matter.
When Elon Musk bought Twitter for about $44 billion, he used a combination of his own money and funds raised from other sources. He put up around $13 billion from loans backed by Tesla stock, and about $33.5 billion came from his own equity and other investors. This means roughly 30% of the purchase was financed through loans, while the rest was covered by his personal wealth and contributions from other investors.
But because these are just opinions, we ought to take into account someone else who put $2 billion in, and that was Prince Al Walid of the UAE, who is the single biggest investor in Musk's Twitter takeover. And he recently stated that the value of his stake is still at $1.9 billion, the same that he paid for it back in 2022. So he thinks that he didn't lose any money and it's worth the same. So let me know in the comments below what you think it's worth today. I mean, maybe it's worth more. Like, there's some arguments that now if it's got Grok or something tied into it, or maybe it gets like implemented inside of Tesla, that it becomes more valuable in some way. Okay, so I want to tell you about this new AI model. It comes out of MIT. It's interesting because it's kind of like a diffusion model, right? Where you start with noise, like for image generation, and then you just kind of tweak and tweak and tweak, and all of a sudden like an image appears. But what it's thinking about is a data source that's in 3 dimensions. It's how atoms can arrange themselves in material. And it's starting with the atoms in sort of a random place, and then it keeps tweaking itself to say, what if we were to move this in this way? Would we end up with like a crystalline structure? And the way that it's moving those things are using the kind of simulation tools that we have to actually manipulate materials. And by breaking the predictions down into smaller structures, it's starting to come up with some really interesting crystalline structures, which means like super strong materials. This could lead to better batteries, better magnets. The model generates multiple possible structures and compares them to real-world data for accuracy. And it's solving over 100 previously unsolved structures. And it's interesting because I guess, and this blows my mind, but you can have the same chemical makeup of a material, but have the material have much more unique properties if you align everything right. Like if it's a crystalline structure, which would be useful for things like permanent magnets and for data storage. So jumping to another article, indestructible 5D memory crystals to store humanity's genome for billions of years. These crystals can store up to 360 terabytes of data for billions of years, resisting degradation even in extreme temperatures. So imagine we start, if we are going to be, I'm not recommending we do this because I don't know if we like the grabby aliens idea or not, of like whether or not we should be noisy or not. But if we keep shooting stuff into space and it's meant for aliens to find us and we want to tell them about our humanity, we could put these kind of things out in all directions, you know, and aliens would eventually find them and they would still be in pristine condition. So yeah, researchers have stored the entire human genome on a 5D memory crystal, a data storage breakthrough that can last for billions of years, right? This opens the door to all sorts of other things that we could store. They can write to the material using super fast lasers. So as that technology keeps increasing, maybe you can write much faster. The crystal is durable to extreme heat. It has the ability to withstand cosmic radiation. And this is arguably the most stable storage material ever created. See, we could use it for a time capsule. Maybe in the future, would people dig up time capsules and they'll want to know about today, like like life before AGI. Oh, forgot to check Alan's conservative countdown to AGI. Yeah, still at 81%. Yeah, life when we were only 81% of the way to AGI, the time capsule. We could etch in this video, you know? Oh, by the way, if you are willing to support the channel, can you click on that Patreon link right there under the video and join? That would be super helpful. That's how I'm trying to make a full-time gig out of this whole thing and bring you lots of content around artificial intelligence and technology and futurism and all the kind of stuff that interests me. Okay, moving on to iceberg lettuce. I know, it's had a really bad reputation. It's kind of the nothing of food. It's like celery. But imagine a future with super golden lettuce. Lettuce with more vitamin A, rich in vitamin A. New study revealed that through biotechnological methods and exposure to high light intensity, beta carotene levels in leaves can be increased by 30 times. I'm not quite sure if we're gonna get to a place where you can just like eat French fries and they're gonna be like so healthy, but I could definitely see reversing the trend where most of the produce that we get nowadays is completely deficient in what it used to have. There's just not the same kind of quality in the same kinds of vegetables, right? Like kale. So kale today has a lot less nutrition in it than it did just 50 years ago. It's the quality of the soil. It's the just kind of like making them bigger and bigger. They still have the same amount of nutrients in them. So if we start to get to the point where we can re-engineer the health back into some of these things, that would be awesome. And that is called biofortification. Imagine nutrient-rich food again on Earth. Reduced healthcare costs, better nutrition for countries that aren't as rich as the United States. Lettuce, spinach, rice, croutons. I mean, probably not croutons, but you know what I mean. All right, officially the worst AI model in the world. Amazon has now launched Rufus, the chatbot. It's actually been out for a month or so, but if you have the Amazon app on your phone and you start chatting with that large language model, you should know that it is powered by ads. I've been a big advocate of, you know, I think you should pay, right? Like whether it's Claude or ChatGPT. Like now it's probably not that dangerous, okay? Like Rufus today is probably a lot like a large language model with the ability to help you find items in the store. So I guess I'm not going to go after it yet, but that is a slippery slope and that path is going to lead to manipulation. That is going to be what they're going to train it for, is to be better at finding products you like, explaining the products in a way that make you buy them, helping you discover new items, and that just sounds like the worst. So Rufus is Amazon's recently launched shopping-focused chatbot, and it is getting ads. So sponsored ads could soon start appearing in placements for Rufus users in the US. And Rufus may generate text to accompany the existing ad copy in certain cases. That's where it starts to get really weird. Like Microsoft's experiments inserting ads into Copilot, no thank you, right? And I do get that these big foundational models are expensive and you need to find ways to recover your money, but it's just bad for society. Some people say that adding advertising as a model for Google and Facebook in the first place was the internet's original sin. The whole thing would just be so much different if it wasn't ad-driven. All right, so Disney now has some rights to use James Earl Jones' voice, the voice of Darth Vader, in however they see fit. There's two sides to this. One is, yeah, like it's very cool if you can give up your voice and get royalties indefinitely as people use it in different ways and they don't tax you personally. It helps a human scale in a way that they couldn't before. The money goes to the individual who had that voice talent. The other thing is, it's just kind of crazy that somebody else can own your voice and make it sound like you, and you don't know exactly what you're saying, and you're not personally saying it anymore. So Skywalker Sound and the Ukrainian company Respeecher used AI to recreate Jones's villain for the 2022 show Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. Mark Hamill's voice was also de-aged using Respeecher for his appearance as Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian.
I am.
Are you a Jedi? I am. Look at that little, what's his name? Yoda. Man, that was 3 years ago, huh? That wasn't even like this crazy AI voice cloning stuff yet. The process of creating AI Luke was done because they had archival material from Mark in that era when I guess his voice sounded the same way he looked at that time. We had a clean recorded ADR from the original films and a book on tape that he'd done from those eras, and also a Star Wars radio play that he had done back in that time. That's weird. I don't really think about how voices change. Like, it seems like it would still be the same, but maybe, I don't know. I guess we get older. Our voices change. All right, so if you think selling your voice for recurring money is a good gig, wait till you hear how much money people on OnlyFans are making. Breaking down the OnlyFans stunning economy. Even though they're a private company, they do have to disclose some financial and business operation information. And in 2024, OnlyFans generated $6.3 billion in gross revenues. And you think of it as only a subscription service, but 60% of customer spending is now via transactions. And unlike, say, Candy Crush, these are not microtransactions, but instead add-on purchases that can cost dozens of dollars or more. So subscription revenues are up 9% since 2021, or $227 million. Whereas transactional spending is up 70%, or $1.6 billion, representing 88% of total growth. That's crazy. The revenues are believed to be twice that of all those other companies that do all those things, you know? But one of the interesting things about this growth, and the real reason I wanted to point it out, is because when you start actually rewarding people, like individuals, they just put a lot more time into what they're doing. So OnlyFans is able to share 80% because they don't have to pay that 30% to Apple or to Google, like running the App Store. Of course, they have to access it through web browsers, which I guess sucks because they need that platform lockout. But you know, because people want the content so much, they do it. And that allows the actual creators to make a lot more. So they paid out $5.3 billion in 2023, which is interesting in comparison to YouTube, which is the biggest platform. And they distributed more than $10 billion to creators last year, almost twice as much. And the YouTube platform's revenues are 4.5 times higher. That's also a crazy stat, that YouTube's most popular creator does a couple million in ad revenue for each of the 15 to 20 videos he posts on his main channel. Dang, in 2024, he's expected to gross 80 to 100 million in YouTube creator payouts. Plus, you know, YouTube is growing with television audiences. It's like the #1 place to watch TV now too. Like, that's amazing. But of course, it's like a lot of networks where a few nodes will take most of the energy. The top 10% of accounts collected up to 73% of overall revenues. It's crazy when you think about what we just learned about X too, being worth about $40 billion if it's still got the same value as when he bought it. And might be why in June of 2024, Elon Musk ended the platform's ban on pornography, a move that came not long after it launched the paid subscriptions and gated messaging. Maybe that's the way to go with Twitter, like if he wants to make that thing valuable again, but it could be like the OnlyFans model, but just for other types of people, something closer to Patreon. But let's talk about how humans and AI models are starting to become more similar in the way that they can think on their own when they're not occupied actually solving a problem. We all know that some of the greatest discoveries in history didn't happen from observation instantly. They happened while thinking about them later. Einstein developed theories about relativity through thought experiments. Galileo derived insights about gravity through mental simulations. And research shows that this process of thinking is not exclusive to humans. Artificial intelligence also is capable of self-correction and arriving at new conclusions through learning by thinking. So they identified 4 different examples of learning by thinking in humans and AI. Learners can acquire new information without external input through explanation, simulation, analogy, and intuitively that totally makes sense. Like, I definitely think I understand things sometimes, and I sit down and try to talk to you and I'm like, man, that came out so wrong. Did that even make sense? Like, and then I think, did you even know it in the first place? All the time. So imagine you're playing one of those diffusion game models in the future, and the simulation is thinking about what it's doing, and it's like, oh, the way that if it's like a shooter game, you're like moving around, and like the way objects are moving, it might think to itself, wow, I kind of did that wrong. Maybe let me try to improve the next time they turn around that corner, or another player comes around that corner. So it's thinking about what it's creating all day long, constantly iterating on itself without even updating new data. It's just got sort of a mental model of how things should work. It keeps attempting things. So it's got its own sort of reinforcement learning built in. It's like a sort of like a GAN, but it's not a GAN. It's just thinking to itself. It turns out that as these new models are coming out, Llama and GPT, and they get bigger and bigger parameter sizes and they become more and more accurate, they actually seem to be less aware of what they don't know, which is the opposite of what I would have thought. I mean, I always felt like, especially with, at least from a human point of view, that as you learn more about something, you realize how much you don't know about it. Like if right now I think about something I know very little about, like sewing or how a car engine works or something, I don't even know how much there is to not know. So it almost seems easier, right? But as I learn more, I'm like, wow, I might not know how any of this works, or I might know how this one piece works, but that makes me realize how it doesn't fit into all these other things. But unfortunately, large language models are actually becoming more confident in their wrong answers as they get bigger, and they become less likely to admit to a user that they don't know the answer. So the testing was done on the most popular LLMs, Bloom, Llama, and GPT, prompted with thousands of questions, and compared all the answers they received with the responses to earlier versions to the same question. And they also varied the themes. And of course, they did find that with each new generation of the chatbot, accuracy improved in general. But they also found that as the LLMs grew larger and became more sophisticated, they also tended to be less open about their ability to answer a question correctly. So it makes me think that could be a new area of research. Like, how do you self-recognize what you don't know? I mean, that's a skill not even all people have, and those that do have it to varying degrees, but it is kind of a higher level thing that you sort of develop later in life when you really start to kind of self-reflect and analyze where your shortcomings are over and over again, and then you develop that awareness of what you don't know. And it would be nice if there was somebody maybe training the models with a feedback system that was also really kind of helping it be humble in a way. Also wanted to say thank you for watching the terrifying AI theory gaining traction about the whether the unexplainability in large language models comes from demons or angels. I always get really excited when I see it on the top end here. So yeah, 8,200 views. I got 74 new subscribers, made almost $50 from that video. I mean, I kind of let you down at chapter 1. Like you guys, I think I kind of talked about, I think you guys were interested in it, but you can see like after 4 minutes and 48 seconds, I just talked about it too much. And then you guys jumped forward. So I'll remember not to dwell too much in the future. But yeah, people really came back for the chapter, the AI girlfriend singularity. What's next? Usual suspects over here in the US, age 35 to 44, mostly male dominated, about 50-50. Yeah, 52% subscribed. I always like to see more not subscribed because that means it's like showing it to new people. But, you know, I'll take it. For 8,000 views, that's great. Yeah, and thanks to the $2 from the super thanks on top of the watch page ads. So I appreciate you guys watching the video, watching the ads, supporting the channel. Bet there's going to be wild comments in here. An object like a dinosaur has no opposite. There is not negative of a dinosaur unless you want a dinosaur made from antimatter. Lots of thoughts on that. I'll put it in the song. But let me go to the augmented reality podcast to get some more comments. Oh, this was a fail in my eyes. YouTube is full of interviews with people. I only well, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of an expert. He's been through a lot, but I only subscribe to like 3 channels about AI and none of them do interviews. Anyways, in short, please no more interviews. Rather do what you've been doing. Okay, but Rob likes them. Agree, boring. And out of seeing content. Yeah, that's my fault. I was using Riverside FM, and like when I brought it into Final Cut, I probably just, I don't know, I made a mistake on the timing. Good to have different content. Brings in different views. All right. Look, it's feedback. We'll make it into a song. I'll think about it. I mean, I just like meeting people in the industry, so it's like part of my desire to like go out there and like learn from people. So it gives them, kind of gives me an excuse to like reach out to them. But I don't want to bore you either. But I don't know if I want to handle like another channel right now. Like maybe a podcast channel on its own would be good, but I can like barely find the time to make this one. So I just would probably have to scrap it. I don't know. I might just do them very periodically. What if I just do like 1 or 2 a month? Maybe even 1 a month. I'm also thinking about doing like a Q&A. Do you guys like that? Like people are always on Reddit or like ask me anything or whatever. Do you guys want, if you want, I could do a community post asking for questions and I could just answer those. Or I'll just stick to this. Like I love like just reading through the news and sharing it with you, giving my opinions and trying to summarize it. Ooh, let's try J-Core. I don't even know what that means.
A dinosaur made from antimatter.
I do. I want an antimatter dinosaur.
There is a very old saying in Silicon Valley: if it's free, you are the product.
Ooh.
And now just like the dinosaur has no opposite, there is no negative of a dinosaur. Unless you want a dinosaur made from antimatter. There is a very old saying in Silicon Valley: if it's free, you are the product.
Ah, I do want an antimatter dinosaur. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video.